talk about regarding comics?
Let's talk spinning out of some stuff in King in Black and Avengers 42 and 43, Jason Aaron. By the way, this is Shock, or not Shock, what is this?
Shock Therapy.
Shock Therapy, Shock and Awe Toy Reviews podcast. Let's talk about retcons and annoying tropes a little bit. The Jeff Johns factor, getting Johnsed. A lot of people talk about getting fridged.
Yeah.
I talk about people getting Johnsed.
By which you mean?
By which I mean, for example, the first time I noticed it, and if you read I have an article, I wrote it, but for example, the first time I really became aware of it is the highly acclaimed Batman film from 1989, the Tim Burton film. In it, there's a great scene between Batman and the Joker where he says, they're fighting, he's like, "You made me," and he goes, "You made me first." And when he says that, it clicked in my head that, like, oh yeah, Jack Napier killed the Waynes making Batman. Batman then fought Jack Napier and knocked him into the vat of goo and didn't save him out of the vat of goo, thereby creating the Joker.
Yeah, I personally don't like it when the criminal that shot the Waynes is known.
It should just be a random mugging.
It should be random because he doesn't know whether or not he's already caught the guy, if the guy's still out there. So it's this never-ending war.
No.
It's the uncertainty.
So,
I personally don't like it when it's known, and I especially don't like it when it's Joker. But it was a good movie.
Right. At the time, I thought it was cool because it adds a neat little twist to the Batman Joker thing. It totally went in the face of everything I knew, or like Killing Joke and every other Joker comic I'd read up to that point. And then I slowly noticed it everywhere, and a lot of times in movies, like Spider-Man 3. The Sandman's the one who killed
I've stricken most of that movie from
Uncle
my memory.
Ben, and not the guy that Peter killed.
I'm glad I forgot that.
Like,
that sounds terrible.
Like, what the F, man? But anyway, those are movies. They do it a lot in movies. Like, every comic book villain is somehow tied to the hero.
Yeah.
And it annoys me. A hero just isn't a hero anymore. It has to be personal, because otherwise, why is he doing it? He can't just be an altruistic Superman. That guy killed my parents, so now I'm on this. Yeah.
Right. I think it's a combination of guilt and responsibility.
But, like,
it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, and sometimes good guys just stop bad guys. But the reason I call it Jeff Johns is because Jeff Johns, in my opinion, is one of the most overrated, overloved comic writers of our generation. Why is that? Because of Green Lantern. And in Green Lantern, when he brings him back, Hal Jordan, to be Green Lantern, they got rid of Kyle Rayner. The first thing Jeff Johns does is explains that the yellow impurity is actually Parallax. So when Hal Jordan took the name Parallax, he wasn't actually Parallax. It was the evil entity inside of him just being named Parallax.
Right.
And that the Guardians knew the entire time that Parallax was an evil thing hidden in the ring, and they kept it in there imprisoned.
Now, did he also bring the Guardians back?
He also brought the Guardians back. He also then very, very quickly, oh yeah, by the way, there's Red Lanterns, Yellow Lanterns, Green Lanterns, and Sinestro wasn't just yellow because yellow was fear. There's actually a whole spectrum of lanterns, and there's blue lanterns.
Yes.
Who were around before the Green Lanterns and who are still around, but just never happened to ever show up in any of the 364 Green Lantern spaces, even when it's Crisis on the Infinite Earths and the end of the multiverse.
Yeah.
Until Jeff Johns needed them to show up.
Right.
And that drove me nuts. And then he turns the Green Lantern's oath into, oh, this isn't just the oath to light up our, turn on our power rings. This is the oath that foreshadows everything. Blackest Night is a whole thing. And if you'd just been listening to the lyrics of the record all along, you would have known to prepare better. And my God, I went nuts when that happened, when Hal Jordan was like, Batman was everyone was like, oh, it was okay, but Batman still held Hal responsible for his actions as Parallax.
Accountable,
there you go. But basically, if the Guardians had bothered at any time before Hal Jordan snaps to possibly mention to the greatest Green Lantern of all time that, hey, not only is a necessary yellow impurity in the rings, but the physical embodiment and spirit of fear itself from the beginning of time is also in there, that maybe you possibly don't want to drink all the Green Lantern energy. Maybe that's we know you're having a bad time, but maybe that's just a bad idea.
Yeah. So I was reading, I don't remember when I started reading Green Lantern again. I started the first time during Kyle, and so Kyle is sort of my go-to Green Lantern. But I started paying attention, I think, during or in the lead up to Blackest Night, and I like some of the outcomes. So the Red Lanterns in particular, I like that.
They're awesome.
Right, they're great. Blue, I couldn't care less. Like, the rest of the spectrum doesn't really do much of anything.
Oh, and Star Sapphire, who's been around, is actually a purple what?
Yeah. And the embodiment, so the parallax entity, and there's entities for each of the colors, all of that's dumb. Orange is great too. Orange Lantern.
Oh, but all that's been around the entire time. You didn't need to know until just this moment, because so the story can happen.
Right. So you have to overlook all of that. And I sometimes am able to forget.
Yeah.
Just like Spider-Man 3. I like some of the outcome, but the rest of it was just dumb.
And another thing, another example is when Peter Parker, and this is by JMS, J. Michael Straczynski, Peter Parker isn't just randomly bit by a spider and becomes Spider-Man. He was actually the spider totem all along. Ugh. And even if he hadn't gotten bitten by the radioactive spider, he would have eventually become some type of spider.
Now, I had stopped reading Spider-Man by that time, and I have never investigated what all of that's about, and I hope to never know.
Oh, and by the way, at the same time this happened, that spider bit another person who became an even stronger spider totem, and some guy knew to hide her away so that there wouldn't be enough spider totems, so the bad guys wouldn't come across our universe.
Didn't she get bitten first?
Yeah.
Right.
And then, oh yeah, now it's time for my story to happen, so I'm going to reveal that, oh yes, this other person was actually bit, and she's even more of a blood in the water for the, whatever they were. I can't remember. Inhibitors, not inhibitors. There were some.
Interdimensional vampire things.
Yeah. It was the guy that Ezekiel warned him about.
Skipped all of that.
Yeah. So that's another example of it.
But for current comics.
The thing that brought this freshly to my mind was Avengers 42, where one of my favorite writers of Thor, of no less, and one of my favorite writers of a Thor run period, of a comic run period, Jason Aaron, and this is Avengers Jason Aaron, who is a separate human being, I swear, than any other Jason Aaron, reveals that Phoenix Force is Thor's mother. And I about lost my shit because, of course, what? Huh? All the time Thor has fought the Phoenix Force, like, I don't know, in A versus X 4 years ago or whenever it was. That never came up before now.
Yeah.
And when Thor gets his Phoenix Sun powers, Odin just, like, never before now until just this time when we need Thor to have extra powers, even though he already has extra powers in Donny Cates' Thor run.
Yep.
And now he's not just the god of thunder, he's the mutant of thunder, and that's why he's able to control the storm that is in the hammer. That isn't just him having storm powers, he's actually a mutant, and that's that all the Asgardians are mutants, and they're not gods, but actually just higher power mutants.
Oh, that sounds so much worse.
Right? And where does it stop? And yeah, so it's a trope in comics. I noticed, like, it's annoying.
So I think a lot of this stems from not allowing characters to change and age and die.
Yeah.
So every new writer's looking to insert something into a character's past to impact the present, I guess. But it's not additive.
But it doesn't happen in real life.
It's dumb.
Like, I'm not going to suddenly have a third dad show up and tell me that, oh, Rick, you're not actually from Illinois.
Right.
You're from Iowa. Like, that doesn't happen in anything other than in pop culture, literature, comics.
Because Thor's already had two mothers, right?
Yes. There's his mother in the comics was finally a long time ago revealed to be the physical embodiment of the earth, Gaia. Not Freya like it is in the Norse mythology. And they did that at the time to make it a reason why he's tied so much to earth. Like that was to give the reason why he always had the battle of Odin with Earth or Asgard.
Now that to me sounds unnecessary already.
Well, but that's it's been happening all the time. But see that there's this need in everything that we have to give explanations for things.
Or to tie two things together.
Or to put them together, because then if it's kind of like this thing or with this thing, we can understand it. Loki can't just be a bad guy. He now has father-son issues, just like Thor. And he can't just be the god of evil. He's the god of mischief or the god of stories. Like, no, he's the god of evil. He's just evil. He doesn't need to have daddy issues or brother issues or I had a chance to be the son of Asgard. No, you didn't. You were always the smaller brother. You never got a shot. I'm sorry.
Kid Loki was great, though.
Kid Loki was great. But Kid Loki's a great example. That wasn't because of anything from the past. That was a thing that happened just organically in the story. It wasn't like I had always been Kid Loki and I've been waiting to rip free.
At the time, Loki was dead.
The time Loki was dead, Thor missed his brother. They had literally just gotten through a story arc where they had kind of forgiven each other, at least because Loki had helped, save the day reluctantly again. And Thor had brought everybody back, and he missed his little brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so he brought him back, and he came back as a kid, and it was a super cool idea, and it was fun, and it was a new, fresh take on the character that wasn't, oh, by the way, Cable has been around as an X-Men forever, and everybody knows him until we needed to have Cable in around. And then, oh, by the way, Cable is actually Cyclops' son from the future, so that was a loose plot line, and we need to tie that all together. Oh, yeah. And Deadpool's mother's grandmother's sister was also,
Oh, Deadpool.
Yeah.
I don't even want to get started on that.
So... yeah, and the next one, of course Darth Vader's Luke's father, and of course Luke and Leia are sisters. Of course, here's another great one. Darth Vader made C-3PO, because C-3PO can't just be a random robot.
I hate him so much.
And you want to talk about, here's one of my favorite Jeff Johnsing things. He didn't actually do it, but it's a Johnsing. The entire first 7 seasons of Smallville is literally the episode of the week where, oh man, if this is Clark's fault because he brought the Krypton here, I get my powers, and now Clark feels responsible to save it because it was his planet and it's his fault. It's not because he's a good guy and superpowers and just wants to do right and help people. It's because he feels guilty and he needs to help them. And he spends the entire series fighting against who he is rather than just being Superman and a symbol of hope.
Yeah,
And just doing it because that's the way my father read, which 100% leads into Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, Clark Kent, Pa Kent debacle that so many people hate. I'm like, it all came from Smallville first, because you got to hide your powers. You can't do them. And if he had just used his powers and been out there and taken care, yeah. But no, every week here's a new Krypton guy, and only Clark can save him because Clark feels bad about the Native Americans who knew about the Kryptons and had kryptonite, and what the hell, man.
So you're gonna keep it as Johnsing, even though we just talked about Lucas doing it beforehand.
It has been around forever.
Yeah, it's true.
It was in the first issue. It was Amazing Spider-Man 15. It's the whole, like, Spider-Man's whole mythos is based on the fact that, of course, the robber he let it get away is the guy who killed Uncle Ben. Of course. Yeah, it's been around forever.
But Johns does it egregiously.
Johns does it egregiously, and Johns does it and gets applauded for it time and time again.
Yeah, it's true too.
I'm sure he wasn't the first guy.
No.
But he definitely made sure that when Barry Allen came back, when he brought Barry at Flash Rebirth, oh yeah, Barry Allen was the lightning bolt that went back in time and turned on Flash in the first part.
Oh, him. Gee, that happened?
That's the thing.
That guy.
It wasn't Jeff Johns. I don't think it was Jeff Johns who first brought up that idea. But that's definitely a thing. And of course, the new 52 isn't just a marketing strategy to relaunch the DC universe.
Yeah.
It turns out that no, Dr. Manhattan got bored because he wanted to feel something again. So he remade the DC universe. But he actually didn't get it right, so he needed to feel more. So then he made Rebirth.
In that case,
because he was f***ing around with stuff.
I think he's trying to tell a meta story of both explaining bad editorial decisions and tying it into real world events so that, like, the audience feels something. But if it doesn't make story sense, it's got to go.
But there's no, like, the only reason for Dr. Manhattan to be involved in that is so that the story can happen. Like,
he just wanted to bring Watchmen into the DC universe. And he's like, I could do this.
Yeah. But it's like, why tie that together? Why does it need to be together?
Some more spin-off books.
Yeah. And then I should look at my list.
King of Black Alien Goo.
Oh, King in Black Alien Goo. Oh my God. This is Jason Aaron again. He did another Johns thing.
Well, it started with Kate's, right?
It started with Kate's, and then they retroactively made Jason Aaron stuff.
Right.
So Venom isn't just a f***ing random alien machine symbiote that eventually teams up with a guy who hates Peter Parker to become Venom. No. He's part of this black goo that the guy Null created. And
it's a planet of goo.
He's weaponized goo. He's part of weaponized goo that has been around since before the start of the Marvel Universe and is actually the cause of Galactus's universe before the Marvel Universe to die. And by the way, while we're talking about it, yes, Thor actually fought the Black Goo, aka Venom, and a symbiote before Venom even existed, and symbiotes have been on Earth forever. What? We just never bothered to tell you until we needed to tell this story. Oh, and by the way, he actually fought the Silver Surfer a millennia before that as well, and nobody happened to notice all this black goo until we just needed the story to happen right now.
Space is a big place, man.
Yeah, but Venom can't just be...
Space is a big place. Put that on his shirt.
Can't he just be a guy who's angry at Spider-Man?
Not anymore.
Can't he doesn't need to be part of this whole, like...
It's got to be eating people.
He's never eaten anybody. And all right, he might have now, but when everyone thought he was a badass evil guy, he never ate anyone. He didn't even kill anyone.
Lethal protector.
Carnage murdered people.
Oh, Carnage straight up murdered people.
So yeah, I'm sick of that. Everything has to be connected. No, it doesn't. Everything has to have a
Everything
reason.
has to be a bigger deal than it at first appears.
Which is scarier? Some random guy in a white mask showing up and murdering all your friends? Or it's your brother and he's just happened to be murdering people to get to you? Because if it's your brother and I live down the street and I don't know you, I'm not afraid that he's going to come murder me as much as the guy who just shows up and murders random teens. So my countless years as a child terrified of Michael Myers, needless, because he's not coming for me. I'm not related to them that I know of. Until, once again, yes, Wilson, we already talked about the fact that I'm going to have a third father show up and tell me that I'm from Iowa instead of Illinois. You missed that.
Okay.
And it happened in Beast Wars. I'm looking at a Beast Wars toy. Because Beast Wars, it can't just be its own separate continuity.
Nope.
They have to tie it back to the
G1.
original G1.
Yep.
Like, why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because Beast Wars wasn't as good an idea and didn't sell as well, so they had to make it go back to get the G1 fans to come back.
Well, they had to keep the characters but produce new toys, so they had to change forms, which is how you get Transmetal and then Transmetal 2 by touching the spark of an older Transformer.
Of course, they're both named Martha.
Ugh.
And nobody in the history of comics noticed that they were both named Martha until the most important, finger quotes, moment in the battle of Batman versus Superman to cause a collective groan of, that's why he stops playing, because he's literally been showing signs of post-traumatic stress syndrome for 3.5 hours every time he hears the name Martha. But when Superman says Martha, he stops, and that's...
They go to his grave, to his mom's grave in a dream, and the blood comes out.
He's the whole movie,
Yeah.
but everyone hates it because it's Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns, Batman, Superman. Their moms are both named Martha. You didn't bring up Grant Morrison online or on film camera.
Was he who started Professor X?
He wasn't who started Professor. Well, yeah, no, because New X-Men retconned that he had Cassandra, his sister.
Oh, I forgot about Cassandra Cain.
Cassandra. No, that's Batgirl.
Oh, yeah.
Cassandra Nova?
Yes. Cassandra Nova.
His sister who he fought in the womb and
Right.
then she came back.
Oh, I forgot about
And
that.
then it was Joss Whedon who Johnsed the X-Men with Danger being alive.
Yes.
And then I believe it was Ed Brubaker
With the other
with
brother.
X-Men Deadly Genesis with the other brother and the other team of X-Men, because of course Professor X was actually an evil son of a bitch.
From way back.
And
We just didn't know.
This whole facade of him raising and helping young kids was not true.
Yeah.
Just wanted to with them.
So,
yeah.
so you call it Johnsing. I actually call it Wicked, because Wicked was, I think, the first experience for me of just totally retconning an evil character into someone that was misunderstood good character.
Oh
And
yeah,
I'm like, oh, this is Darth Vader's story.
or the new Maleficent movies. Like,
Yeah. Well, I looked at that as soon as I saw the trailer. I'm like, oh, that's just Wicked.
yeah. So yeah, I call it Johnsing,
Yeah, that's fine.
and I call it Johnsing because he took out Kyle Rayner, who was the character who was responsible for fridging.
Yes.
So I call it Johnsing because he fridged Kyle Rayner. Yeah. So
Hell sucks.
Hal doesn't suck, but Kyle was way cooler, and the only I will straight up give it to Hal. Grant Morrison's Hal Jordan is the greatest Hal Jordan, greatest Green Lantern of all time.
I liked him sleeping on the couch because he's effectively homeless.
Yeah, I love the fact that he could actually make cool things instead of big green punching gloves.
That's what I liked about Kyle. I'm like, hey, someone with an imagination that makes
Like,
more than just
wait, you can make things with moving parts?
boxing gloves.
Yeah, you idiot. Like, also, I don't want to offend super old artists. We draw better than you guys. But yeah, so I don't know. There are countless other examples. What's his name? The first Hulk movie, Ang Lee. Because he can't just be infected with gamma radiation. No, his dad actually had to with his genes his entire life so that the gamma radiation would work and that way on him. And of course, and there's the whole thing like the Hulk isn't just a rage monster. No, Bruce Banner was abused, and that is where the rage monster comes from. Like,
so did Bruce's dad also beat up dogs?
Probably.
Okay. I forgot about that movie too. Haven't they brought that into the comics now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was in the comics long before that, or not the DNA part, but the abusive part. So Barry Windsor Smith was writing a Hulk story that was going to reveal that Bruce's dad abused him or was a mean father or whatever. And editorial, I think the story goes that editorial didn't quite like it or didn't want to do it, or he was taking too long. And then an issue of Hulk came out a few months later while he was still working on it that was basically, oh yeah, Brian Banner's a dick, and that's part of where this all comes from, this rage monster. And Barry Windsor Smith said, you, and took his story. And that story's coming out later this year. It's called Monster, and he basically just kind of redid the Hulk head so it wouldn't look exactly like the Hulk, and it's not going to be green, but there's going to be a giant rage monster by Barry Windsor Smith.
Huh. All right.
But yeah, so that idea had been Johnsed a long time ago. Yeah, that's right, Wilson. Johns. There's countless other examples that
there really is.
And it's just something that is annoying me right now. And yeah, and I wasn't going to read King in Black. Not only because of that, but I was like, oh, really?
Didn't Wolverine create the X-Men?
Who knows? Probably. But man, to go back to King in Black, which was kind of what originally, I didn't want to read King in Black because I'm very tired of Venom and symbiotes and them being so popular. And I was alive in the 90s. I've already done this. I don't need to do it again. And the fact that it's Donny Cates really makes me struggle because I love most of his books, if not all of his books that I've read.
Just read his indie books.
I do. I read a lot. Not as many as you do, but a lot of them. And then, of course, King in Black had to tie into Thor because it was shown in Venom and that Thor could kick the shit out of Venom because of lightning. And then Thor shows up, and then, of course,
Well, he already connected it with the Negro Sword.
Yes, it was already connected with Gore the God Busher because, of course, it all ties together. And
a sword isn't just a sword.
Sword isn't just a Necro Sword that he fights. Did you notice, like, hey, man, did you notice that he kind of had, like, Venom-like powers? Yeah, dude. Do you think we should call up Mark Silvestri and Image and see if we can get the Darkness in on this? Hell yeah, I do. Coming soon in crossover number 6. Thor and Venom team up with Null to fight Darkness. You heard it here first. Probably not, because who knows when this will actually get posted.
Silvestri has to finish this Batman story first.
That's true. It's true.
Coming in 2030.
2030. Yeah, it's the thing. So I didn't want to. So that's where it first started, like, really bug me again. Like, I didn't want to read it, and I'm like, I kind of want. I'm gonna have to read it because it's gonna tie into Thor somehow, and then it ties into Silver Surfer Black. I'm like, can it just no?
But there was one moment you liked, right?
Oh, there's some great stuff in there.
Nolan Sentry.
Oh man, when Noel rips Sentry, that was awesome. Yeah, that's what I call Johnsing now. But yeah, there you go.
That'll be the title of the episode.
Johnsing.
Johnsing. It bothers me, and he does it, and he did it with Batman 3 Jokers.
Oh, that.
Of course, Batman always knew the Joker's name. He just,
felt like asking the chair again.
Felt like asking the chair to make sure he knew. And of course, the Joker has a kid just in case I need to have a sequel. Yeah. And of course, I'm not going to tell you guys. And of course, I'm not going to answer the questions because I don't need to.
And then I'm not even going to write it.
Yeah. So, So that's been it for this episode of
Shock Therapy.
Shock Therapy. A Shock and Awe podcast. Available on Spotify. Available on iTunes and any other platform that you can find it. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. And please hit any positive or negative thing. Just comment. Shoot Wilson some emails saying, "Hey man, I like it when Berg and Toast talk." Because when I don't need to see pictures of ideas, but when you're talking about toys, I kind of want to see them so I could understand what you're talking about, because that would be helpful. But if you want to tell me why the articulation schemes, please don't show me why that sucks. Just kind of describe it to me, because I do buy DVDs and I don't want to know what you're talking about, because maybe...
All right! We get it.
I don't think you do.
I do. In other words, I'm done with the podcast. You guys are taking over the podcast.
I asked like midway through. I'm like, "Do you want to review this?" No. I asked.
I believe you asked. Just can't, it's hard for him to not edit this with 3 buttons.
Look, we can take it off mic if you want.
There's a lot of material in this.